I have gravitated to Dr. Catherine Clinton's work for a very long time. I want to tell you why. Quantum biology, the idea that your body runs on light and water and frequency and field, not just chemistry, is the kind of thing that usually gets handed to physicists and then lost. But Dr. Catherine took it the other direction. She made it approachable. You do not have to understand a single equation to feel the truth of what she teaches. And that is a rare and generous kind of intelligence. Here's the part that really gets me. This should be the native language of my profession. Naturopaths were trained on the body as an organism in relationship with its whole environment, the sun, the seasons, the water, the earth. That is quantum biology. And most of us flinch at the word. But Dr. Catherine didn't. She came to it the hard way. 2 autoimmune diagnoses and a Lyme diagnosis in her second year of medical school. An unraveling that the textbooks couldn't reach. And the road back taught her that we don't end at the barriers of our skin. This fall, she'll stand in a Kansas field, keynoting a regenerative farming school, tracing the same physics from the soil to the cells. And right now, as she does this work, MD Anderson is studying biofields, and the journal Scientific American is calling quantum the future of biology and medicine. The whole establishment slowly waking up to what the naturopathic doctors were supposed to already know. Here's my conversation with Dr. Catherine Clinton. I'm Dr. Nasha, and this is Tend the Terrain, where we stop drowning in information long enough to recognize we're starving for something much deeper. Health doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in a terrain. The biology, the rhythms, the relationships, the meaning you're still making. All of it shapes whether life expresses as vitality or quietly begins to unravel. And each week, I sit down with scientists, physicians, farmers, artists, patients, and systems thinkers, people who talk about bodies, but also about land, about healing, but also about grief and belonging, and what it means to become human again. This isn't a show for quick answers. It's a space for better questions. Pull up a chair. Dr. Catherine Clinton, this is such a joy for me because, as I told you right before we started recording, I feel like I know you and we've never met. I followed you on social for years. We have a lot of mutual, beautiful friends in common. But how is it that we're both such creatures of nature and have never crossed paths? Like, I'm just so intrigued by that. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And everything in its divine timing, right? We're meant to now coalesce and collaborate and do all the things. So it's perfect. I'm glad we're talking today.
So good. Well, your story is really compelling. You didn't come to this, maybe by choice, but you were in I think your second year of naturopathic medical school when your own body decided to, maybe you called it then a breakdown, maybe today we call it a breakthrough, but you had 2 autoimmune diagnoses and a Lyme diagnosis just converged, and you were literally studying medicine that was supposed to help you, but it just couldn't reach you. So what did that roadblock all the way back then teach you about your body and about the curriculum in front of you wasn't able to touch?
That's a great place to start because
It's a biggie.
that was the beginning, right? And I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions, Lyme disease. It was just this unraveling of my health. I
Mm.
was having panic attacks out of nowhere. And a physician that I was doing clinical rotations underneath, we do our clinic hours in naturopathic medical school. And she really urged me to look at psychoneuroimmunology, just that big word for how our thoughts and emotions impact our health. I know you are a fan of that as well. And of course, she was right. And I was also looking at research around mitochondrial health. This was over 20 years ago and it was new, upcoming. And so I thought, okay, maybe the secrets to me getting better are here. And all of these things kind of converged at once. I found Martin Picard and his work on
Amazing.
mental states influencing mitochondrial health. I found early quantum biology research out of UC San Diego looking at photosynthetic bacteria. But the thing that stood out to me was this quantum coherence, this intelligence
Mm,
that is in living things. And I began to understand that even if my diet was right, even if my supplements were right, there was an energetic understanding of the body and health that was missing. And that's where I got really excited about everything that I talk about today. And I'm still so excited to wake up and do this work and do this research because I think this is the expansion of understanding that we need in health today.
I love this. It's really interesting to me, as a fellow naturopath, that this seems like this should have been, I mean, in one level early on. So in 1996, when I started naturopathic school, we did have some of the OG naturopaths teaching true vital force, vitality, which I believe was another language, an earlier language for quantum biology. I feel our
Yeah.
trainings in homeopathy just scream of it. And yet more modern trainings in naturopathy, I think sadly leaves a lot of this out of the equation. And it sounds like even you had one sort of shining star provider that pointed you in this direction, that opened up a whole world for you. And to even hear you say 20 years ago, looking at the mitochondria, it's still not really taught in the medical schools today. Or looking at the quantum biology, definitely not taught. And so I just think it's so remarkable that you asked and your teacher arrived, and yet now you are the teacher to so many on top of it.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, looking back, there are these traditions of
Mhm.
vitalism. We see this in ancient indigenous wisdom from so many different cultures. I mean, every one that I've looked at,
Mm.
this echoing of energy and the unfettered flow of energy through the body being that source of health. But when I went to school, my undergrad degree was in philosophy, and I
Oh,
was
cool.
doing sports and just wasn't headed towards naturopathic school. And when that shifted, I started assisting with a midwife, and all this opened up, and I realized I wanted to go to naturopathic school. And I toured the school in Portland. I toured the school, and it was incredible, exactly what I thought. But I had to do years of pre-med to get in because I avoided that like the plague in my undergrad. So by the time I got back, the curriculum, the campus. There was a huge meditation room that had been turned into
Mm.
an institute, and that's great. I mean, I opened up a research institute. I love that, but it was missing that understanding that the body is energetic
Mm.
primarily, maybe first, before chemical and mechanical.
Mm. Wow, that is so beautiful. And, tell us a little bit about how you would work with a patient. Like, walk me through the lens that you're looking through when you're sitting with a patient for the first time that's new to your practice.
Well, I think most important, what I'm doing for someone, especially in the first visit, is I am just creating a safe space. I'm a
Mm.
safe harbor for them to tell their story. And I think just in doing that, it provides them the opportunity to start healing in ways they maybe haven't had before.
Wow.
That safety component is so key. And I think really that runs through everything that I
Mm.
do. Of course, we take a lot of time as naturopathic physicians in that first visit, especially. It's an hour and a half. We run through their story. I'm asking questions to understand their lifestyle and what has led them to where they are right now. And they usually walk away with some sort of varied prescriptions, but there's always a backbone in quantum biology. We're always looking at light. We're looking at water. We're looking at sound. We're looking at fields of energy, whether that be electromagnetic or scalar, the biofield, our thoughts and emotions. And I think what people do in my practice is they walk away with a lot of information and with a to-do list. And they're like, oh, okay, this is a lot. But I sort of cackle as they leave because I know that list isn't just a chore list, it's an invitation back to relationship.
Ooh.
And those relationships with the rising and setting of the sun or the ground beneath our feet, those are unconditional. They are meant to hold us and give us a sense of belonging, a sense of safety. Because of my background, I see a lot of patients with autoimmune conditions, gastrointestinal issues, and I have never seen one who has this chronic disease history that also didn't have a sense of a lack of a sense of safety or a lack of a sense of belonging.
Wow.
And so even though they get this to-do list, I know that that circadian rhythm prescription or that grounding prescription will turn into a cultivation, a lifelong cultivation and relationship with the world around them. And so really that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to instill awe in that person, that their body is capable of healing. I'm trying to provide safety in the moment, but also through this quantum biology approach to health.
Oh, I love that. It's funny that you said the awe. Just this week, I believe I read a Substack of someone who talked about awe as a form of medicine. And I was like, yeah, that's so good because it feels like, and maybe this pun is a little bit intended, that that's what lights you up. And so that is such a beautiful way that the world you work in now, the way you see your patients and you bring them home to themselves and to the collective, that fills you with awe every day. So my bet is you're getting a lot of medicine for yourself in the kind of work that you do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Or else I probably wouldn't be as excited about it, right?
It's a
It's
lot.
such
Yeah.
a beautiful, brilliant body that we inhabit in this incredible, magnificent ecosystem. And to be focusing on that day in and day out is really rewarding. Absolutely. Its own beautiful form of medicine.
I love this. This fall, I'm really excited that you are going to be a keynote presenter at Gail. I hope you're there, Andres. We'll get this out here. So I'll repeat here. So this fall, you're going to be a keynote speaker at Gail Fuller and Lynnette Miller's field school, which is a regenerative farm where a gathering. I've had the absolute distinct privilege to be a keynote in the past. People like Nicole Masters, people like Zach Bush. I mean, big names in the regenerative health and regenerative land space have presented here, where you collect literally under a great big cottonwood tree in a field in Kansas with a bunch of farmers, which is just one of the most delicious environments you could possibly imagine teaching in and being a student of. And you're going to be teaching under the banner of nurturing our symbiotic landscape. And your book that I love is tucked behind you there, Optimize. Everyone, it is amazing. It's like the manual of everything we've forgotten. It's like the remembrance. I love it. But your book ends on a very symbiotic nature. And I feel like this lecture you're about to give is like the continuation of it. So I can't wait to see what comes of it. So the same thread runs for you, it seems, from the soil to the cell to culture, and not just culture in a dish, but, or in our bodies, but culture collectively. So what does standing in a field that is actively regenerating teach you about human terrain that a clinical room never could?
Such a great question. That's such a great question.
Mhm.
It reminds me, in a way, of my early training when we did cadaver lab. in naturopathic school, and we had these big masks on, goggles, and I would
Mm,
just fill a little brim with tears, both
mm,
for respect out of the people that were there and donated, but also just a sorrow that this is how we're learning about the body,
mm,
that this is the pinnacle of scientific education of our doctors,
mhm,
because it's the energy that is dictating life. It's the energy that is imbuing life, whether we're talking about that field or our feet that are upon it or the grass that's growing from it, the soil, this universal flow of energy that runs through every plant, animal, human being.
mm,
It's this definable. I mean, we can talk about photons, we can talk about electrical fields and the flow of electrons, but also the things we haven't measured yet and
mhm,
maybe we'll never be able to understand.
mm,
That's what's contained in life. And I think that is the tragedy of modern science and modern medicine right now, is that lack of appreciation and acknowledgement for the unseen and
mm.
possibly the unknowable, the humility that it takes to walk hand in hand in that knowing that there is this immense energy. And the more we become embedded in that energy, the healthier we'll be. But
Yeah.
we can't understand it all. And that requires humility
Mm.
and gratitude and a sense of awe again. And I think that's what I gain from looking at life in those situations, whether it's the soil or the plants or the animals and humans in that environment versus a petri dish or a
Mm.
microscope. And those things are incredible. Don't get me wrong. It's exciting that we understand there's microscopic life. But I think the scientific revolution, capital S, has really pushed out this understanding and this reverence for
Mm.
things that are bigger than us.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I just was drinking that in, everything you were saying, and you struck me. What a powerful way to start this conversation of imagining myself suited up in the anatomy lab, where we are learning how to tend life by being with death. That's a big disconnect. I think that just really landed for me. And also, what we're trained currently in most environments still, and hopefully not forever, is that we're taught how to manage disease. We are not in the medical school training taught how to cultivate health. And so your entire framework is learning from the living dynamic nature, not the still um, dead nature or the diseased nature. You're actually showing us a path to what health actually looks like, because we've been taught very clearly what disease looks like, but we really haven't been taught what health looks like. That just is it's kind of blowing my mind there right now.
Yeah, you put that so well. And a distinction I think we can make is death as a process
Mm,
versus studying things that aren't alive anymore, removing
yes.
them from their living state to understand about life versus this cycle of life. I think
Mm,
it's very important that we have reverence for that, that we have some kind of place for that in our medicine and in our science. That's what actually drew me into being a healer, was assisting with a midwife and walking that very tenuous line between life and death. For
yeah.
me, I think it was maybe my second or third birth. I was like, oh, I'm never going to do this. This will never be my profession. But for me, it was church.
Mm,
It was a complete immersion into that cycle of life and that extreme, breathtaking awe that happens in both extremes, right? Absolutely, with new life, but also with the cycle and having reverence for what happens in that death cycle and afterwards, right? And so I think I just wanted to bring that in, that it wasn't just the death
Right.
of the cadaver lab, it was the removal of life.
Mm,
And I think our culture is missing that as well with death, right? We try to do everything to push that away, to
yeah.
suppress it, to avoid it, rather than letting it fully come over us and experience both the deep sorrow and the extreme gratitude for being able to be a part of that and still living and still carrying that life within us. So I think that medicine, as it's currently practiced right now, is incomplete if it doesn't have that reverence for
Wow.
that cycle.
Tend the Terrain is brought to you by DHA Laboratories, my exclusive lab partner. And the reason I can keep saying the 5 words I've built a career on: test, assess, address, don't guess. DHA is a family owned, CLIA licensed lab that puts it all under one roof. Standard blood work to do the deep functional and specialty work, thousands of tests with none of the runaround. A real lab run by real people who pick up the phone. And because they're thrown in with my listeners, there's special access and pricing built just for us. Come through my link at drnasha.com/DHA. Wow, I love that qualification because, like you said, the body on a cold steel table under fluorescent lights is not animated any longer. And the process that led to that moment, we were shielded from. We were left out of that, and which is a loss to our humanity, a disconnect from that very important cycle of life. And I also love, it's funny, another parallel with you and I also started out thinking I was going to be a midwife. And after 36 births,
You lasted longer than me.
oh, girl, I was like, why can't you just be born between like 9 and 5? And like, no, because I need my sleep. But it was interesting because many years later, when I was in private practice, deeper into my general family medicine and started moving more into cancer, what happened for me is I also started sitting in with a lot of people in their process of dying. And that was just as transformative. And so I love that you spoke to that. It actually brings up emotion. I remember the very moment, Dr. Catherine, where I was on my 36th death, if you will, being with someone as they transitioned. And that process is just as miraculous as a being entered this world. And it was in that moment, it was like a lightning bolt moment that said the doorway is the same doorway coming in and out. That portal is the same doorway, and the energy it takes to walk through either direction is just as potent, just as sacred. And so I love that you brought that up. It was like just a flash again of a memory, but not many people in our world and it's especially in the Western culture gets the privilege to have a front row seat to either of those processes. So I love that you brought that into the discussion. So thank you. Thank you for reminding me of something really important.
Yeah, that's a beautiful understanding of it, that same
Mhm.
window. I mean, I assisted with her for 6 or 7 years. I actually was she became my midwife. I just
Oh,
visited her this
love
past
it.
weekend. She's just a lifelong mentor. But it wasn't until I had the privilege of being with family members as they passed
Yeah.
that there was that understanding that it's the same door, portal, window. It's
Yeah.
the same incredible thing. And what a privilege to
Mm,
be a part of that and to witness it. And what sorrow it is that people don't have
yeah.
that in so many ways, not just being with the person during that time, but the full emotional state of that, being able to grieve in full, being able to, really experience the full range of human emotion. I think that I in the institute that I started a couple of years ago, we did research on heart coherence and mitochondrial function. We're just getting that research and data back. But one of the hard things I have in the area of heart coherence is this idea that it's only the positive emotions that
Um,
bring us to that state of heart coherence or high heart rate variability. And I would argue that it's the friction that degrades that heart coherence or that heart rate variability. It's when we have anger and we turn it into blame, or we have sorrow
mm,
and we repress it. We can be fully coherent, right? Coherent meaning two or more things working as one. We can dance the tango with
mm,
rage and grief and all those things. And I think we're meant to as human beings. And the fact that we are deprived of that experience, whether it's actually being with somebody who's passing or experiencing those emotions, being allowed to experience those emotions, I think that
mm.
that's detrimental on so many levels to our society and our healthcare system.
Oosh. Ooh, this is so juicy. Thank you. Thank you for this. I love it. You've alluded to the fact that like how medicine is practiced now, that it's like currently, which I think for me sounds like you're triggering a little element of hope that it could be better, that it could be different. And I feel like something may be shifting while you are actively doing this work, while you are actively stewarding this work. One thing I've been hearing about a lot lately is that MD Anderson is opening up an entire field, the biofield study, like institute themselves, and focusing in almost entirely in cancer in this space, which is really extraordinary. Even I think it was in the last 6 months or so, Scientific American called biology the next big thing in medicine. This is the direction we're going. I know it's like they're catching up with you. They're catching up with you. That very same establishment that filed all of this under woo is now literally starting to reorganize around it. And so, after years and years of being on the fringe, what does it feel like to watch this become respectable? And do you think there's a risk in all of this optimizing, that we may actually co opt the soul right out of it?
That's a great question because that seems to be our tendency. So, you know, of, of course,
Yeah.
of course, there's that possibility. And actually, you kind of see that, right? Like if we look at biohacking, for example, that's an incredibly intelligent line of thinking when you look at what they're talking about using light, using grounding, using different fields of energy to impact health in the body. But it often gets relegated to these little hacks. So I'm going to keep living my life exactly how I do it, but I'm going to slap a red light on my belly and call it good. And it's like, okay, well, you know, that's a
Or-
perfect example of that. And I see that in the circadian rhythm community a lot that, well, it's all light and it has to be this and it has to be that. I was just posting something to my story the other day about how I stayed up till 1:30 in the morning talking with my 13-year-old, and it was the best circadian misalignment I could have hoped for, right?
Oh,
It's life can't be boiled down to these optimization
right.
tips, hacks, whatever you want to call them. It's the full picture. So
Oh,
I am so excited that it's starting to become mainstream, that we're starting to see light and sound being used in universities, MD Anderson with intentional healing. So exciting, so
yeah.
hopeful. And we're human. Humans are so messy. So of course we're going to we're going to do something with
Mess
it.
it
But
up.
it's just a continual remembrance, right? Like these, the most cutting edge research in this area, it comes full circle back to what the ancients always spoke of. So really it's a great return or a great remembering. And I hope we hold on to that
Mhm.
understanding a little bit longer
Mm.
than we have in the past.
I love it. And we have a very recent example in the media of an influencer who spent millions of dollars a year on testing and optimizing and hacking and doing all the things. And after all of his research that, I mean, bless this man for wanting to be a living laboratory for the rest of us, he came to the same conclusions that you've lived, which is it is the fundamentals. It is those moments of the light and dark patterns, the cold and hot exposure, just not of what nature offers. Not that you're inducing in your own living space, but also those moments that you mentioned that are so precious, that are when you leave outside of the boundaries of what is perfect. That's actually where we stretch and expand ourselves so much. So that time with your son was probably more medicine than any contrived hack you could have done. So I love that. I love that you brought this full circle, and that we can see sort of what happens when we over scientifically replicate it versus to when we just get out there and live it. So thank you for that. And I'm excited that you're, I think, a leader in this, and someone who I hope is helping pave the way for this work to be done for the masses.
Well, I'm just delighted and
Mm.
grateful to be standing, side by side with you in this,
Right on. Go,
and
girl.
bringing this awareness to of an expansion of
Yeah.
health, right? It doesn't
Mm.
negate what we already know. We're
Mm.
so glad that we know all that, right? But
Exactly.
there are some missing pieces, and it's important for people to understand that there are more tools in the toolkit,
Mm.
and I can think of a time where we need it more. I mean, I know you see it in your practice. Patients are getting more and more complicated.
Yeah.
They are more sick than they used to be. We need this expansion. And I think that's why it's coming, right? That's why
Mhm.
MD Anderson is doing that. That's why people are taking notice, because we need more tools.
Yeah,
The same things aren't working like they used to.
it's huge. Mm.
Yeah.
What I'm excited about for your talk at the Field Farm event, and what your book sort of ends on, is your line. There's a line in your book that really stays with me: is that we don't end at the barriers of our skin, and that our resilience lives in connection in light and air and weather and the living world. And so, there's a physics claim to all of this, but there's a spiritual one as well in the same breath. And so, after the illness, after sitting with patients with illness, after the book, after all of it, what has quantum biology asked you to unlearn about being a separate self?
Such a good question. And I think that's what really drew me. My husband now, he was then my boyfriend, was like, what is your obsession with this? What are you, what is the deal? And I think it was that energetic perspective. So
Mhm.
I was raised by a mother of all faiths and a father who was an atheist.
Oh, interesting.
And that was a little unsettling to have, this all or nothing kind of perspective. And I love my
Mhm.
dad dearly. He
Mhm.
passed, oh, maybe 7 years ago. And he really instilled this
Mhm.
intellectual side to my life, and to questioning and to investigating. But there, I was always perplexed by this atheism. And when
Mhm.
he did pass, there was such a deep grieving and sorrow, and sort of existential dread of like,
Mhm.
how can that be it? That can't
Wow.
be it.
Wow.
And to have something that feeds and satisfies that intellectual side of me, and I can say,
Mhm.
well, validated by science and research, and all of that, and have it bleed into the spirit,
Mhm.
to have one of the leading, laws of physics. Energy doesn't end, it doesn't die, it changes forms.
Wow.
That brings up a beautiful opportunity for us to bring science and spirituality back together. And for me, that was a beautiful thing that I could reconcile in my life, that there is space for that. And of course, there's space for that when we are talking about how things move and how energy flows and what it means to be human and what happens before and after and what are all the layers of being a human. It's not just physical and mental, emotional, maybe not even just spiritual. Maybe there are many different layers. And
Yeah.
for me, quantum biology has nudged me to feel comfortable marrying the two rather than this hard line training that we've always had to, not marry the emotions with the physical or definitely not the spiritual. It's allowed me to bring those both into a beautiful relationship that feels very natural and comfortable and comforting
Mm.
to myself all at the same time.
I love it. You're really showing us that you can hold multiple realities at once, and that all are welcome, and that they don't have to be siloed, and they don't have to be either or. I think that's really powerful. And you were raised literally, incubated in that environment. How powerful! I can definitely see how that has informed even the way you teach, because you bring that sort of scientific rigor, but you do it in a way that has a very like still very feminine, very soulful cadence to it, that you still remind folks that there's a lot more than just the numbers, than just the data or just the tool at play here. And so super, super grateful for how you present these complex and yet crazily simple ideas into the world. For our listeners, I'd love for you to share. This is how I like to kind of take us home in this process. I always ask, what is it that you are tending in your own life right now?
A good question
Mm,
and a great time for it as well. I think right now I am tending to balance.
mm,
I have just a lot of irons in the fire, pots on the stove, however you might want to say that.
nice.
And they're all very precious to
Yeah.
me and they all mean a lot to me. And then there's me as well.
Yeah.
So I think for me right now, it's I'm tending to that balance of really wanting to do all the things, show up, teach, be a teacher, be a homeschooling mother,
Mm,
be an author, be a researcher at the Institute, and have those things flourish and be nourished. And also remember that I am this thing separate of that. And so I think that I'm really tending to that balance right now in my life, especially.
amazing, amazing. And I feel that one in every cell as well. How can people learn more? Where can they find you? Where can they stalk you in a very lovely way?
I love that. Um, they can find me anywhere. My name is Dr. Catherine Clinton. That's my handle. So
Perfect.
Dr. Catherine Clinton on YouTube, Instagram, social media, but also on my website. That's the name of my website, drcatherineclinton.com. If people are interested in checking out the book, it's at all major retailers, but on my website at drcatherineclinton.com, if you do /optimize hyphen bonus, you can learn all about the book, all the places to get it, but also put in your information to get all of the wonderful bonuses that come with the book as well. So
Yes,
I'm
worth it.
just, yeah, just excited to get this information out there.
Perfect. And do I recall that you have a course, or is that yeah.
Yeah, I do. The Quantum Biology Health Institute, I started that a couple years ago, and there's two arms to it. So one of the arms is research,
Oh,
incredible advisory board, and the other arm is a training program, a certification program for this approach to health and healing. And I also have a community. I also do lots of free webinars and info sessions just to get this information out there, because if you can grasp onto it and share it with someone else, that's this ripple that I'm so hopeful about.
So exciting. I am so grateful for you to take some time out of your very full day, full life as you're striving for balance to help us bring balance into our own lives. So Dr. Catherine, it's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for this podcast, and thank you for having me on today.
What stays with me after Dr. Catherine is how ordinary she makes the miraculous sound. We spend so much energy trying to hack and optimize and dose our way to health. And here is a physician telling us that the body was never a machine to be managed, that it runs on light and water and frequency and relationship. Most of what it's asking for is already outside your door. The sun, the weather, the ground, each other. She learned that the hard way through an illness that took her apart in the middle of medical school, and she came back with news so old it sounds new. We don't end at our skin. You may never read a word of quantum physics, but you don't have to. But maybe today you notice that you feel more like yourself in the morning light, or standing on the earth, or near the people who make you feel held. And maybe that noticing is the whole science. Thanks for tending the terrain with me today. Whatever stirred in you, don't rush past it. Let it compost, because when we tend the terrain, life knows what to do. See you in our next conversation.